Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Can you guys hear me? Can you just write something on the chat if that's the case? Okay, I think someone already wrote something here. Okay, so we're going to about start. So I'll just like to say, let's see if I recall. Kalispera. Okay, I hope that I said good afternoon. Okay, at least for my travels from Greece, that's what I remember. So I will just talk about in this session about how can we find basically the lack of Azure governance, a little bit disturbing in some customers. Okay, keep the questions coming as you wish. So just like when you guys have questions, chat here. So I will just start also to monitor the chat, and I'll be watching the questions coming, and I'll try to answer as soon as I read them. We know that basically there is a latency when you guys write, when our message gets there. So let's be all patient with that latency. It's what we get. Unfortunately, we're not doing this live in person. I hope next year the crew organizes IT ProDev Connections 2021, and it will be in person in Athens, and I will be more than delighted to be there. For people that don't know, so basically Greece is my second favorite country in the world, okay? Being the first my own. Sorry. It has to be, okay? So first of all, let's say thank you to all the sponsors. Without those sponsors, this kind of events couldn't be created. So it is a really thank you for all the sponsors, and of course all the communities, that all the guys that put all the work together on this. There's a bunch of people behind the scenes to make this event happening. I would like also to start myself by just saying a little bit something. And if having coffee for you in the morning doesn't wake you up, and it can be a Freddo Espresso Schietto, for example. Basically, what happens is that if that doesn't work for you, try this tip. Try to delete a production resource group. Believe me, that if that doesn't wake you up in the morning, I really don't know what will work for you for sure. Okay. So doing a short presentation about myself. My name is Tiago. I work as a cloud architect and advisor. I'm also a trainer, so I help people learn Azure and also get certified. I'm also a speaker in some events like this one here. But basically, my main task is just help customers to migrate to the cloud and to and basically to move creating native cloud workloads. So basically, it has to do with cloud architect and advising. I work as an independent contractor. My Microsoft also for Azure certified and also a regional lead, so an MCT region. This is my email, my Twitter handler. So if you wish, please follow me. I usually share a bunch of stuff around Azure and about certifications. So that's like the two main topics that I covered. And I couldn't resist to publish this with this photo here of me in Athens. Okay, it was already, I think it was like 4 years ago, but it was in August. Okay, and it was 42 degrees, and I basically went there. It was tough. Required a lot of water bottles, to be honest. Okay, but there you go. So what is the agenda for today? So today the agenda will be about what is Azure today, what's the status of Azure. Then we talk about subscriptions, management groups, Azure policies, basically role-based access control, and cost management, and of course always why we should do this and all of that stuff. So what is Azure today? So Azure today, it's the second largest cloud provider in the world. We have 63 regions worldwide, and more will come in the very, very near future. We have around 160,000 miles of fiber and subsea cable. And usually what I say to people is like, hey, even if Azure is not, you don't have a region within your country or near you, there is always an edge site, almost for sure. Like in Europe, we are very lucky because we have edge sites in every single major city. They have an edge site, okay? We can also put connections using and connect to this private network that existed. By the way, currently it's the second largest private basically network in the world. And we can connect to that network using ExpressRoute, which is a technology basically to get a connection in our company that through a provider, etc. But then we'll get connection to the Azure private network. It's not the internet, it's a private network. I have really to say that is a really, really important basically detailing here. And I can get 100 gigabits per second, which means I can, to be honest, get dual of that through one of the things that I have in ExpressRoute. So in the end, I basically can get something like 200 gigabits per second in my company to Azure, which is like wow, right? It's amazing. Also, a single region usually corresponds in average about 1.6 million miles of fiber, so that's also a very interesting topic. And then sometimes people ask me like, oh yeah, great, but why Azure, right? Why should we think about, oh, let's move to Azure? So there are like two things in here, like your company and you as a professional. And you as a professional, it's because, look, there's huge demand from customers. Like everyone wants to move to Azure. Everyone needs to go to some kind of cloud provider for part of their workloads. So, there is a demand from customers. There's a lot of work to be done, and there's not enough qualified people. So it is important for sure to qualify the people. And if you're already qualified, hey, it's a great opportunity for you on the marketplace. It's huge in Europe, huge in the United States. Some countries are still lagging a little bit, sometimes because of market regulations and things like this that doesn't allow you to move to Azure because you need to have a region within your country, which is great for Greek people because, as I'm sure everyone knows, Microsoft announced recently that we're going to have a region in Greece. So it's great because we're going to fulfill that requirement. So that requirement will not be anymore a topic of conversations between companies like, oh, we can't go because this and that. No, it's here. Okay, so you can move. So that will be a great achievement from Microsoft. Also, because it is fun to work with. I truly believe in this, and I'm really happy every single day, to work with Azure and do amazing things with Azure, okay? So every time that I wake up in the morning, I'm like, oh my God, what I'm going to do today, and still customers pay me, to do these amazing projects. Don't say anything, okay? But it's really, really cool, the stuff that I can do, with Azure. And then, of course, the pay for what you use. And this is more for companies. It's like, oh, I need, I'll pay. I don't need, I'll not pay, right? So I'm currently doing a project in a customer, and early this week, I started to see what the team was doing. And I was not happy, to be honest, with their work. And I really thought, look, this is not going to work. And then they told me, no, it works. It's like, nah, it's just, there's like a lot of tiny things in here that I don't feel that this will work. This was an AKS cluster, and they were testing this with a cluster of like 4 nodes. So I was like, yeah. But the customer wants to be able to grow up to like the max that the customer said. It will never happen like 80 nodes. So I was like, okay. I just spun up 100 nodes, and I tried to run the application there. Well, it failed. And I got a bunch of telemetry data. We got where it failed, why it failed, and how the team is going to solve those issues. And then we're going to spun up 100 cluster, 100 nodes again on the cluster, bam, and we'll test it again and again until we have something that is stable and we say, this is good, we can deliver this. All right? Who has on-prem 100, okay, servers just lying there just for me to test something? Just don't have that. But this is one of the amazing things that we have with cloud computing. Also, when I have demand, bam, I can just put more. And when I don't have it. And of course, I will not pay. So that's all those advantages that that we have. Okay. So we start to talk about what? Start to talk about subscriptions, and even before subscriptions, let's talk about regions. What is a region? And when we talk about governance, this is like super important because one of the big asks is, oh, where's my data? I need to know my data at rest, where it is. So when we say we have a region in Greece, okay, that means that can be one data center or it can be more than one data center. There is a latency defined perimeter that they need to fulfill a certain lower level, a very, very low latency between all the data centers. All those basically data centers, they need to be in a single country. So you cannot have like two data centers in Greece and another data center somewhere else. No. They need to be all of them in Greece so that we can call it, oh, this is the Greek region, period. And then we have like West Europe, okay? West Europe. It's like, oh, West Europe. In reality, it could be more than one country. But no, West Europe is Netherlands. All the data centers are also always on the Netherlands. There's no data center like, I don't know, in Belgium or in Germany. No way. That just doesn't happen. Today, we have more than 63 Azure regions. So the last time that I counted them, they were 63. In the meantime, Microsoft also announced Denmark, Sweden as also new regions. So probably this is even outdated. This is why I just put a plus sign on the right. Because, like, my God, I can't update this every time that I say Azure regions and update this. So I just put it a plus there so that, okay, it's 63 plus. And then, one of the things in terms of governance that is also important is, so we have, customer tells, okay, we want to do this. Okay, great. Let's do that. And then the customer tells you, oh, but look, Tiago, we have this, and this, okay, that we need to guarantee that the data is in Greece, let's imagine, and we want to use all this set of services. So they give me basically an architect design, high-level architect design of the solution. And I start to look, and I need to check if all those services that they have there, if really exist on that region or not. Because not all the services exist in all the regions. So, for example, when the Greek region starts and becomes GA, don't expect to have all the services that you can find in West Europe and things like that, because that's not what's going to happen, okay? You're going to have few services. Then, with time, more will come, and after a year of being GA, okay, yeah, more services will be there, etc. But that's what's going to happen. So the last time I was doing this for a customer was in Switzerland, and Switzerland was like really new, the data center, and they wanted to use AKS, ACR, ACI, and some other data stuff. And I was like, no, we don't have like any of this in Switzerland, like zero. We have data, all of that, but those we don't have. So look, or we find alternatives, or we wait, or we go for another region, but don't expect this to be in here. So be careful with this. But look, this is basically the Azure regions map that we have today. And as you can see, yes, there's like tons of regions worldwide. And look, I'm not going to bother you guys with this. It's not today's conversation. But you can see, like, and focusing here, just here, for example, in Europe, we can see, yeah, okay, Greece here, awesome. But if you see, we have sometimes like Switzerland, we have Poland, we have Austria, Italy, Norway, okay, and so on. So as you can see, there is an Azure is doing a strategy which is having smaller regions, but having one region per country. And that's amazing, okay? Because, like I said, there is a lot of regulation in Europe that we have that says what? That says stuff like, yeah, we can run this wherever it is, at least the only consideration is the data at rest needs to be within the country borders. Well, if you have one Azure region in every single country in Europe, well, for all Europe, yes, we can fulfill that. That will be a huge achievement when that day comes, and I believe that day will come really, really fast. Okay, so that will be really cool. Okay, to have something like that. Okay, so first thing that I need to create is what? First thing that I need to create, it's an Azure subscription. Okay, so when I create an Azure subscription, what is an Azure subscription? It's a logical unit, okay, for the Azure services. So when I create an Azure service, oh, what's the subscription? Oh, that's the subscription. This can be also a security or a billing boundary. It's a easy security and a easy billing boundary, okay? And all of them, okay, they need to be, each one of them needs to connect to a single Azure ED tenant. And when we have stuff like, imagine, oh, by the way, why should we have more than one subscription? Each subscription has quotas. They have hard limits. Some also soft limits, but soft limits, you just open a support case and you said, hey, I need more this, and they will give you more. But then there is a hard limit, like imagine storage accounts. There is an hard limit of 250 storage accounts per subscription. And you say, I want more. And the support will just tell you, hey, just create another, okay, another subscription. So when you're planning something and you're like, I'm going to spend a lot of Azure storage accounts in here, maybe it's a good idea for you to think about a way to create several subscriptions. An easy thing that people do is to have one subscription per environment, okay? And that's easy because, look, I have several types of subscriptions, okay? I have like enterprise agreement, cloud solution providers, and like there's like a bunch of them, okay? If you are in the enterprise agreement, you're like, just go there and you just say, hey, new subscription. And you call it my company development, my company production, and then everything in between that that you might have from those environments. And then, of course, look, you can give permissions to the development environment. It can be a little bit more permissive over there. You can just say, hey, yeah, just get permissions for the developers. You just give permissions, and then you can control what they can do or not. But you can give more permissions to that. But when it comes to production, you're like, no. Production only like what? Only really like a subset of people will have access, okay, to that, and you'll be a little bit more strong in terms who has permissions to what and things like that. So that usually companies start by doing something like this, but you can even do more. I have customers that we have like 50 countries where that customer is, they have business there. We wanted to give some autonomy to the local IT to create stuff, local applications. And yeah, so this was great because we created permissions, okay? Subscriptions for each one of the countries. And then we got to a point, then we were like, oh my God, this is such a huge mess. We didn't got to this point, but let's imagine we're going to get to a point that's this is a huge mess because we have like 50 subscriptions, one per country. Then some countries have more than one. Then we have also the corp subscriptions, which are like more 20 of them. And we're like, my God, it's like when I want to do something, I need to go every time that subscription do it, then that subscription do it, and things like that. So that's a no-go. I don't want that. So we started to look at, right when we were designing, we need to do management groups. Look, there's like no other way. We look at management groups, and what is management groups? Give me a higher level above what is subscriptions. And then, like we're going to see, I can target policies, I can target spend budgets, I can do role-based access control, I can do compliance cost reporting, okay? And you can do this by management group. One of my customers, for example, they have a subscription for business unit. So there's like a business unit. Oh yeah, there you go. You have a subscription for this. And then another BU business unit. And then they have dev, production, and others in between. So when they want to know, I want to know costs for that BU, they go BU, blah, 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 and they have like 5 subscriptions for that business unit. But they just say, I want to know the cost reporting for the managed group that's called BU, and then there it's a number. That's it. And they get it very easily, okay? So this is the kind of stuff that we can do. And how can we do this? So let's do a demo. Let's just jump here, okay? And let's do here a demo. And let me just open up here the Azure portal. There you go. And just like a quick overview and read here some management group stuff. So I just need to search for management groups, okay? And management groups, and there you go. And then you can see here that I have here already a AZ Contoso root, right? But if I open this one, I even have 3 more, which is branches, corp, and others. So I have like corp. Let's just go to corp. Oh, corp, and I have like 2 subscriptions here. One for development and another one for production. Oh, okay, right. So yeah. They have this. Let's just go back then. Let's click here again. And now let's go to branches. And branches I will have, oh no, branches I even have more management groups. I was like, oh, okay. And let's go to Europe, for example. And then in Europe, you see I have here, okay, 4 different subscriptions. So it's like Germany, Netherlands, Portugal, and the UK. And you're like, oh, okay, great. Okay, that sounds cool. And if you click here, if you go to Asia, you can see, oh, Singapore. And if I go to North America, I can see Canada and the United States. And you're like, okay, so this is the way that I organize this demo company in here. It's a multinational demo company. We have places like customers everywhere. And we have like these IT teams that are local from those countries, that they have stuff running there, etc. So we need to have this kind of stuff because, and now the advantage is, and by the way, just one quick thing, to create a new management group, you just need to be in the basically in the tree of the management group, in the place where you want, and just need to click add management group. And then adding a management group is as simple as what is the ID and what is the display name. And this is, as you can see here, so I have, this is the display name, and then you have the ID over there. Got it? And you just put this in here, and you create, you just basically do save, done, okay? It's that. Moving a subscription inside a customer, a management group, it's also very easy. Imagine this sponsor MVP. If I click on the ellipses here on the right, I have the option to move. And now, what is the parent management group? And here I just need to say, I want this under, okay, let's just say others. And just press save, and ta-da, this will basically be moved. Okay, it will just be moved there. It's as easy as this, okay? So there's like not that hard to move the subscriptions and put the subscriptions in the correct places, etc. It is quite easy, okay, to do that, okay? So what can I do now, and what do I want to do about governance? So there's like always one thing that customers ask, that it leads to stuff like Azure Policies. Azure Policies will create, assign, and manage policies, will run evaluations, and we'll see if I have resources that are compliant or if they are non-compliant. And if they're non-compliant, well, you have some homework to do to put them into a compliant state. Sometimes it's easy. Other times, it's not that easy, to be totally honest. Some of them, it requires some effort from your end to put them compliant. And advantages is to enforce compliance, apply policies at the scale, because I can create a policy and I can apply that policy to the management group. And then every single management group under that parent management group, every single subscription that you have under that management group will apply that policy. That's like awesome. This is what we did in that very large corp, so that we didn't have to apply policies in each one of the subscriptions. No, I just apply there. It will propagate to all the subscriptions. That's like pretty cool. What kind of policies can I do? What can I do with policies? I can just force the location. And that's important. Remember that I said we need to make sure that our customers choose Greece, okay, as their place to store data. So I can just say, look, if you want to create something, it needs to be on that specific region or a group of specific regions. Also, because of costs, some regions are more expensive than others. I might say, hey, look, you can create, I have this in one customer. So Brazil, it's like very, very expensive. South Africa, it's also expensive to run stuff there. I have one of my customers that is like, it's like, we don't care where you create stuff. We will trust, okay, that you will create things where it makes sense. This is why you're choosing that region. So they will kind of trust on the employee. But look, you have all of them available, but not Brazil and South Africa. So they did exactly the opposite. It's the not allowed location, which is another policy that we can also assign. Allowed resource types, like, oh, you can create only virtual machines, virtual networks, IP addresses, NSGs, firewalls, etc. What about, like, I don't know, like something else? I don't know. Or you can also do another one, which is not allowed, okay, resource types. So it allows everything, and you just say, Databricks, no. Synapse, no. They're known for being a little bit expensive. Okay, so you can basically say this. You can even go deeper in some of those resources. Okay, like virtual machines, we know they have different SKUs, right? Different sizes. I can just say, and I will just allow you to create specific virtual machine sizes. I have this for a team of developers that we give them a subscription. It's like, hey, create whatever you want there. It's your subscription. You're going to be billed in the end of the month for it, so who cares, right? But look, I just allow you to create 3 different sizes. This was even the development team that when we said that to them, they were like super on board with this and said, oh yeah, look, makes all the sense. I don't want someone here might create something and then he forgets or something like that. No, that seems to be an awesome idea. Let's do that. So we choose 3 sizes for them. They were like super happy with those 3 sizes. Then the other day they come and they ask me like, hey, Tiago, look, we need another size because none of the sizes that we originally selected, they are nested. They allow nested virtualization, and they need it because, well, now you don't need it anymore, but they need it for running Docker. Okay, so they need to run Docker because Docker, they needed to run Docker desktop to do some stuff, and they needed that. Okay, it doesn't matter why, but well, they need it. And I was like, oh, okay, great. So we just allow them, okay, to have that. In the meantime, okay, Docker desktop changed. They don't need that anymore. They ask us, hey, look, can you change that size to this size because it's more appealing to us, and we don't need the nested virtualization anymore. And oh, okay, great. We just change that, and they're super happy because they are not be able even to create sizes that not on the list of approval. so they will not overrun into costs that they can't afford, things like that. Tags. We're going to see that tags are like crucial for all the governance stuff. So yes, for sure, tags. And we can force with policies to have specific tags. I will show you that too. And then stuff like, enable Azure backup on every single virtual machine that you create. You can even do stuff like this if you see that it's something that, it's nice to have. So what is the terminology? First of all, we create a policy definition that defines all of this. Or we can use an existing built-in policy. So all of those that I said, they are built-in policies. You can just use them. You don't need to do the policy definition, okay? When you have I need to apply that one and more 5 different policies, so a total of 6. And you're like, you don't need to do the assignment of a policy definition and then the other like 6 times, okay? You can bound them together in a definition initiative. So it's an initiative. It's a collection of policy definitions. That's your initiative. And now I can assign, and instead of assigning each one of the 6 policies, I will assign the initiative. Kind of a way to group policies, basically. And then we have a dashboard where you can view, this policy is compliant, the other one is not, the assignments, if they are, compliant or not. Because the assignments is the policy definition or the initiative definition assigned to a scope. So that policy initiative, can be compliant in one scope and non-compliant in another scope because it depends on the resources that you have there. So let's just see how Azure Policy behaves, okay? So what I'm going to do now to do a demo is I'm just going to create here a resource group, okay? So I'll just create here a resource group and I'll just say, hey, I want this AZ training subscription, okay? And I'll just going to do this, I'll just call this AZ Greece Policy. And I'm going to drop this in West Europe. I'll just create, there you go. I just basically created the resource group, okay? Now, look, if I want, I can just come here, create a resource, and I can just say stuff like, let's create a storage account, okay, and create. And I can select that resource group, and I can say AZ Greece, policy demo. And yeah, it works, it's allowed. And I'll just choose, East US. And I'm just creating a storage account in East US. And I just, and it just creates. See, there's nothing that doesn't allow me to do this. Okay, this takes 20, 30 seconds to deploy, but let's just believe it will deploy. You will see the message there. But look, I don't want this. I need to have something that is capable of saying, look, I only allow stuff to be deployed to North Europe and West Europe. Okay, that's the only thing that I allow. So we need to go to policies. I'll go to policy. And under policies, I can check here definitions. You see all the list of the built-in definitions in here. And we have hundreds of them in here. I'm not, of course, going to talk about each one of them, or we're going to lose the whole day just on this. But I search by location, and you have this one here. Ooh, allowed locations. That seems nice. And you have the definition here. The definition of an Azure policy is JSON. So if you want to build your own, you just need to basically to use JSON. By the way, in order to do that, I really advise you get Visual Studio Code, get the Azure Policy extension. It will help tons in creating custom policies, okay? But now I can assign this, and I'm just assigning this one here straight. What is the scope? I can just say the scope, it's that management group or a specific subscription, or even within that subscription, a specific resource group. So we can do to the specifics of the resource group, which is what I did. Then we need to say here assignment name, okay? And I'll just say AZ, okay, Greece allowed locations assigned by Tiago. There we go. And then I'll just say, and I need to go to the parameters. And then in the parameters, I need to say, yes, so North Europe, like I said, I will allow, and I will allow also West Europe. So those are the two locations that I will allow to create this kind of stuff. So now that this is done, I'm back in the Azure Portal home page. I'm also going to try to create another storage account. I click create. I select the resource group like we had done before. I do AZ Greece, okay, policy demo 1 to 3. Let's see if this one is unique. It is unique. And now I'm not choosing West Europe. I'm going to choose East US again. Review and create. I'm going to click create. And now this is going to fail. Okay, and if you see there, the error, it just says that, hey, look, deployment of the resource on the resource group, blah, blah, failed. Now I need to click on the operation details. And if you see here, you see that, okay, this failed, okay, request is allowed by policy, and then you will have here the details, okay, of the policy definition that is not allowing me here. So this is the assignment, okay? And you see there, AZ Greece allowed locations. This is the assignment that's not allowing me to do this. I'm like, okay. So I can ask to redeploy this. I can come here, and instead of this, I can just type West Europe, and I can say, I need to select here the location of this. So I'm putting in the same place, okay? And I still need to do this here. And I click purchase, and ta-da! Now it's going to work. Awesome, right? And then believe me, it will. Okay, it will work. So this is like Azure Policies, like in a very, very, very short amount of time that we have. If I still go to Policy, and if you go to Assignments, okay, you see all the assignments that I have here, and you see here AZ Greece allowed locations, and you see here that, okay, that's the scope here. It's the policy, and if you see this, sorry, I shouldn't have clicked there. And if we see here on the overview, okay, we can see that this one here, it still says not started, but when it started, this takes a while to start, but when it started, it will say non-compliant. But non-compliant? But how this happened non-compliant? Well, because the problem is, you created something first, and then you apply the policy only after. Get it? So there's stuff there that even if the policy definitions say, if you don't fulfill this, you deny, that's the action that I have for this policy, but it already existed something there. So applying policies in scopes that already have resources that are not fulfilling the policy will just mark that assignment as non-compliant. It will not do anything else. Get it? It will not stop the resources or delete the resources or something like that. Policies do not do that. Get it? They will not do that. But of course, it will mark as non-compliant, like I have. If we go back here, okay, like I have some here, like this one here says non-compliant. But this one here, demo policy 2, says, oh yeah, this one here it is compliant, okay? So it does something, I don't remember what it does, to be totally honest with you. But it does something at that every 16 resources are fulfilling. In the ones that are non-compliant, okay, and you will see that they will tell you, like this one here, append the tag and its values. You click here and you see all the resources that I have there that tells me that, like, oh, this one here, no, because it doesn't have, this one here, basically what it does is, if you see the, basically the definition of this, you see that I need to have a tag name, okay, and a value on that tag name. And if it doesn't have, okay, it will ask you to have. But those here, they don't have that specific tag. And so they're just marking them as non-compliant. Of course, to make this compliant, you needed to go to each one of them and just add the tag with some value. It will pass, okay? It will be then marked as compliant. I don't want to do this because I want to leave this here as it is so that we can see it. Okay? So this is basically Azure Policies, okay? And of course, look, Azure Policies can do much more. You can even force this to create resources. So when you deploy something, if this doesn't exist, create certain resources like the backup and things like that. So it is super powerful what you can do with this. I'm now using Azure Policies in the customer together. I'm doing like some governance and for them together with Key Vault. So with Key Vault, I can even go inside the Key Vault and see stuff like, oh, I have a certificate about to expire. And because we have a certificate about to expire, ta-da, this is non-compliant anymore. It was, but now it's not. Because we cannot have certificates about to expire. Okay, so it's like, oh, non-compliant. And then people are like, oh, wait, non-compliant? Why? Oh, there's that certificate that's going, oh, okay. So they need to fix that. Okay, and then, ta-da, we are compliant again. This is truly awesome, okay? Stuff that I can build with policies. Also important in governance is to understand who has permissions to do what. And for that, in Azure, we have role-based access control. It's built straight on the Azure Resource Manager. Okay? Segregates duties from your team. Not everyone in your team needs to have full permissions to Azure, like we had in the old days of Azure, okay? So I can really say, look, you're only going to have exactly permissions for the stuff that I want, okay? So for this, I have several concepts. I have scope, which is, a scope can be a resource. It can be the resource group. It can be, for example, subscription, or it can also be, okay, a management group. So I can say that management group, everyone has that level of permissions, etc. So all of this, it is possible to be a scope. But now that that's defined, now I need to say, okay, I have roles. There are a bunch of built-in roles when we have the three major ones are reader, contributor, and owner. All of those, they are reader. He says you can read where? Every single resource that you have on that scope. So every resource from every single service. Contributor, same thing, but it's read and you can also write. That means I can create resources, I can delete resources, and I can change configurations of resources. And I have the owner that can do everything that the contributor does, plus managing permissions. So those are the three major roles that I have. But then I have roles that are more specific per service type. And I have stuff like, for example, I have one that is a role that is like virtual machine manager. It's just for virtual machines. And you're like manager, virtual machine contributor. You're like, it's like the contributor, but for virtual machines. So they are like just for that service. Get it? So it's like, wow, awesome, right? And then you start to explore those, and you're like, oh, but I really want is to have that, but I don't want that permission. I would want it to have that. Can I ask Microsoft to create that one? You don't need. You can create your own role. So there's an option to create custom roles. And everyone can create a custom. Well, if you have permissions to create, there's not a. You don't need to be P1 or P2 licensed like in Azure ED to create Azure ED custom roles. In here, there's no need. It's like doesn't have any license attached to this. If you have the permissions to create custom roles, you can, period. Okay? So there's not only like those users can create that and things like that. That just doesn't exist here. Now that we have roles defined, now I need to have a security principal. A security principal can be a user, can be a group, can be an application, a registered application from Azure ED. It can be a managed identity. So all of those, yes, they can be a service principal. Now, if we put a service principal with a role in a scope, that's what we call an assignment. Okay? So I'm going to do an assignment now in this demo, and you're going to see exactly this in action. I'm going to, let's create here another one. Let's just say AZ Greece are back. Okay, let's just put here AZ Greece are back. Okay, and let's just say here, I just want West Europe on this. And now what I'm going to do is, there go, AZ Greece are back. Now I can just go here where it says access control, identity access management. And I can just say add a role assignment. So the scope, it's what? It's the resource group where I am. So it's already my scope. I could do this again at the subscription level, etc. But now I need to select the role. And you have owner, contributor, reader, and you have the other ones that are like the ones specific per service, like I said. Let's go for contributor. And then here you can see some of my users and groups that I have. This is a group. This is a user. If I click here, I can say, oh, what is a managed identity? And I have like a managed identity for a virtual machine. So I have this virtual machine. So I can give this to a VM. The resource of Azure. So it's like, whoa, like amazing. This opens doors to amazing things that we can do with this. But in my case, let me just say, okay, like a user, and I'll just go for this AZ training, okay? So AZ training at azcontoso.com, that's the user that I want. There you go. Ta-da. Okay, and now we basically have added, okay, that person. Actually, the assignment is just this. That user, okay, has this specific role in the specific scope of the resource group. Ta-da! So the role is contributor. The scope is the AZ Greece RBAC resource group. And it's for the AZ training at azcontoso.com user. So now if that user logs in, they will see, okay, this resource group there. So it's pretty easy to achieve something like this, okay? So moving on here, I still want to talk about here about something important, which is, so when we talk about Azure RBAC, I love this diagram for the Azure documentation, okay? Which is I'm talking about here, okay? So this is the kind of that I'm talking about. Role-based access control on the subscription or the management group level, blah, 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 etc. I can also have, okay, in here, in the root level, global admin things. This comes before resource manager. Everyone was like, oh, you have permissions to Azure, you're an admin. And that was it. And you're an admin, you're a co-admin, and that was it, basically. And that was, let's just say, that was horrible, right? Because we had permissions for everything. But the size of stuff was probably not, the number of resources, etc., was not what we have today. And today, we can be very more picky with the level of permissions that we can give to each user, to each scope. So it's much, much better, okay? But what about Azure ED? Because I want to make sure that everyone gets one thing. This kind of roles, so RBAC roles, they are not Azure AD roles. They are like totally different things, okay? So I just want to do a short demo, okay, on this. So in here, I came here, I'm doing RBAC roles. If I want to do Azure AD roles, is you need to go here, you need to go to Azure AD, and then you have the roles here, roles and administrator, see? and you have this kind of roles. This one's in here, they're like, look, totally different from the others. I want to make sure that everyone gets this. Because should I also do governance for this? Oh, yes, for sure. But doing Azure ED Governance is also another topic. Because there's so much more that we also need to do this, okay? And in 1 hour is like impossible to cover everything. But you should do this. There's like using like features like P2. You can do access reviews for membership of Azure ED roles. It is so important to do that. Because from time to time, I see roles and I look at them and I like, sorry, but isn't this guy here left the company like, I don't know, 4 months ago? Yeah. Is this user still exists? Is it still here? Because if the user exists, if you remove the user, it gets out of here. But, yeah, we didn't delete this. I was like, really? It's like, do you have like a group of like users to delete or something like this? When people leave the company, you have to drop them there. They don't. So look, all that, it's also governance, okay? But it's more on the identity bits than on the Azure core resources, etc. Okay. So this was just calling this bit here. Now, a topic that usually we get very popular in companies if you do this correctly: cost management. Everyone always complains about costs, okay? Oh, everything. I always had customers complaining about costs of our daily rates on doing consulting. Then it's because it's the licensing of company A, B, C, or D. Well, now that I'm doing Azure stuff and I only do Azure stuff, they complain about our cost of consultancy and the cost of Azure. Look, this will never end. So it is important that I can really be very, very clear where they're spending their money. And to do that, a great feature that we have is tags. I can tag stuff out. So tags are name value pairs. And I can just put stuff like cost center something. And then in the end of the month, there is an API for billing that you can reach the API, and then you can say, hey, give me, okay, the total, just sum everything that has this cost center with that code. And then bam, you have that. You can even connect this with Power BI and then have like some dashboards and some paginated reports or whatever you prefer in Power BI with this kind of information. Okay, I have done that. I have that. People just go there, bam, they get all the data that the customer needs right away on Power BI, and they can understand, oh, yeah, look, this cost center here, it's costing us this. Okay, then they click and then they can find why. We also do like environment. Every single resource needs to be that must be tagged with an environment. What's your environment? Oh, development. Oh, production, UAT, testing, whatever you call it. And then we can also go there and we can see, oh my God, why we're paying so much for UAT? There was like a huge increase since last month, and we can track it down. We can understand why. Got it? So this is the like big advantages that we have. Also, depending on the subscription that you choose to be on, if you go for like enterprise agreement, you have almost near real-time billing. So you can really understand, oh, why the costs are so growing so much when we should expect to spend every day, I don't know, around like 55, 60K per day. And like, why now today we're already on 85? Like, what happened today? What was different? And well, you can just drill it down and you can try to understand why. So this is the kind of stuff that, yes, it is important to have. But is this just for billing? Of course not. I have stuff like, who is the owner of this resource? Oh, it's Joe. Okay. Uses like a username. Then you go there and you understand that if you want to basically have to do something around this, you need to go there and talk with Joe. And then, yeah, Joe will tell you about what's wrong about that. And what you can do with that and things like that. So that's great. Get it? That's really, really great what you can do with that. So all of this is super useful. Also, okay, what about savings? Where can I save money? So there's stuff like Azure reservations. You can pre-purchase for like 1 year, 3 years, virtual machines, for example. And Azure reservations today is for a lot of Azure resources, like disks, storage accounts, SQL databases, all of that you can do Azure reservations. If you do for virtual machines, depending on the size, depending on the region, you can get like almost 60% savings just because you chose a specific virtual machine size and you said, look, for the next 3 years, I will have this virtual machine in here. And you can pre-purchase that and you can pay in advance the 3 years. A lot of people were complaining about that. They were like, hey, look, we don't have budget for 3 years. We have budget per year. And then we can never pre-purchase for 3 years because our financial directors or financial departments doesn't allow us to pre-purchase stuff and then, we are going to pay with the budget of the next year and the other year. They don't allow us to do that. So Microsoft now also allows you to do a commitment that you're going to stay with that for 3 years and then you pay every month. Get it? So it's the kind of, you pay the same thing, you don't pay less money because of that, nothing, but the commitment is there and then you pay that for the next 3 years. And imagine I do a reservation for 10 virtual machines of size X. So if I use it or not, I will have it. That needs to be done on the size and on the region. I can also use hybrid benefits. Hybrid benefits is if you have an enterprise agreement contract for on-prem software, you have, imagine, 400 Windows Server licenses. If you move one VM to an Azure virtual machine, you don't need that license anymore from on-prem, right? But you did a contract with Microsoft for, imagine, 5 years, 3 years, something like that. So you're like stuck with that license, right, for that period. Well, you can move that license to Azure. That's the hybrid benefit. You are not going to pay it in Azure because you're already paying through your contract. So, that can be. You can also have Azure credits from Microsoft. So Microsoft, sometimes they give Azure credits to companies to try out something, to implement something, stuff like that. And also regions. Regions is also important because prices depends per region, okay? So be careful with that. Then we have the cost management tool. In the Azure portal, I can create budgets. I can create recommendations. I can export data. Okay, it is basically pretty cool. And then the budgets are important. Then you can create alerting on top of budgets. Okay, so it is quite cool what you can do with here. I can just show you here very quickly. Okay, the cost management is just a tool here. See, cost management and billing, and then if you go to cost management here, then you get basically a dashboard, and you can see all of this in here. So it is quite cool what you have here. So if you go to cost analysis, okay, so you have that in here. Okay, so then this I need to change the scope here. Sorry about this. Basically, let's just put it in here in others. Okay, and now select this management group. Okay, so there you go. Now it's just going to show stuff around this management group, etc. And you will see all of this, like by service name, by location. Then you can see basically some other stuff here. I don't spend that much money on this subscription specific that I selected, so you don't see that much stuff here. But in a true company, okay, you can see, and you see this kind of stuff, okay, basically with other values, let's just say, okay. But basically, okay, thank you very much. This was it. I hope that you enjoyed my session about Azure Governance, like getting started with Azure Governance, okay. So my name is Tiago, and this is how you can govern Microsoft Azure. So thank you very much. And if you want to reach out to me, don't forget, okay, those are my contacts, okay? And let me see if I remember. Thank you. I think it's F. Caristo. Hope you enjoyed.